must unite now. We must have one army. We must have one currency. We must have one foreign policy. We must be united.
Oh yeah, so I watched this video, and I encourage you to take time out of your busy schedules and watch the full video. That is the spokesperson for Colonel brother Muhammad Gaddafi, talking about how the vision of Muhammad Gaddafi for the African continent, and how his life was taken away by the colonial criminals, the so-called Western world, the NATO, who go around the world assassinating people who want to do good for their people. So yes, I encourage you and I urge you to watch the full video, as I'll be posting it here. Anyway, welcome to One African Mission with your brother Dubia Anzanse. I am your missionary brother. We are on a mission, and our mission is all about the unification of the African continent. Our mission is all about the dignity of the African race. Please, if you want a better Africa, not just for you, but for the next generation of Africans, then please join in a mission that is fighting for the unification of Africa, because it is only through our unity that we can gain back our dignity as children of Africa. Look at the humiliation that Gaddafi was humiliated. Look at the humiliation that Patrice Lumumba was humiliated. Look at the humiliation that Kwame Nkrumah was humiliated. All these, our great leaders, our great African leaders, they were all humiliated because they wanted to stand for the continent of Africa. We cannot afford to let their suffering and their sacrifice go on vain. We have to fight to see the dream of those great leaders become a reality, and that is the unification of the continent of Africa, and also that is the dignity of the people of Africa, because that is what they stood for. Even though they knew the consequences of standing for the continent of Africa, they knew the consequences of standing for their people, they still take the bullet just for me and you to have dignity. Today, it is our duty as children of Africa, we, this generation of Africans, it is our duty to make sure that the dream of our forefathers, the sacrifice of those who came before us, will not go in vain. So please, if you want to see a change, then let us all come together and fight for a united Africa. That is why we are here as missionaries. So please join our mission, support our mission. You can support us by subscribing to our YouTube channel. We want to take our YouTube channel to 10K subscribers. You can support us by doing that. Also, you can support us on TikTok, on Facebook, One African Mission, the #1 African Mission. We are determined to see a united Africa. We cannot do it alone, but we can only do it with the help of you. So please help us, let us all together fight for this unification of Africa, so that me and you, what the Africa that we have inherited from our forefathers, that we cannot blame them for that before, because they didn't know better. Me and you will not handle the same Africa to the next generation of Africans. Me and you will fight to bring a better Africa, so that the next generation of Africans will have dignity as children of Africa. I thank you very much for coming around. Let us go and watch the full video. It's so damning, because the man said something. He talked about how the European countries came to Libya for the first time and warned Gaddafi to stop meddling on the affairs of Africa, as if to say Gaddafi wasn't an African. Let us watch the full video, and then you'll see what I'm talking about.
A follow-up question. For many people that were watching in 2011, it did come as a surprise, this kind of NATO-led operation, because just a few years before that, there seemed to be some sort of rapprochement with the West. We saw Tony Blair and Muammar Gaddafi in the Sahara Desert shaking hands. We saw meetings with Obama. It seemed like after, years of painting him to be, sorry to say this, but they called him the mad dog and the #1 enemy, as you mentioned, it seemed to be the West were letting him back into the fold. What happened? How did it go from one extreme to the other?
Well, there is a lesson to be learned here. What happened is Gaddafi was leading his biggest African liberation project. And please tell me that we have time to discuss it, because it's the heart of the whole matter. But for now, let me just mention this. Gaddafi was leading the African Union, which was created in the city of Sirte in Libya in 1999. And let's all remember that this is the very city in which Gaddafi was killed, as an iconic punishment for him for creating the African Union in 1999. And Gaddafi was planning to issue the African golden dinar. He was planning to call the Afro and the African Central Bank and the African Satellite Network and the African Unified Army. All of this we will talk about later. So he wanted, because of course the West would oppose all of these liberation projects, Gaddafi wanted to pacify the West, to keep them busy with friendship deals, with economic agreements. He wanted to show his kind of quiet diplomatic side to them, because he believed that if he did this for a good few years, maybe 8, 9, 10 years, he might be able to achieve all of these liberation projects with some confusion caused to the West. On the other hand, the West wanted to use this policy by Gaddafi to, of course, sign some lucrative agreements with Libya in the oil industry, in the military industry, and in many other aspects of economic life. That's why Britain was approaching Gaddafi, France as well, the Italians, of course, and the Americans. But the West was hoping also to dissuade Gaddafi from continuing his project of liberation in Africa. And they spoke to him. And I'm a witness to some of these talks. In 2008, 9, and 10, Gaddafi was visited by European presidents for the first time, and they spoke to him about his projects in Africa, and they appealed to him, so to speak, which means basically warning him to stop meddling in the affairs of Africa. And they warned him especially against the accumulation of the gold reserve. Gaddafi was one of Gaddafi's biggest projects in Africa was the building up of the gold reserve of the country.
So yes, that was the former spokesperson for brother Muhammad Gaddafi, Colonel Gaddafi. And then he talked about something, as I said, I'm not going to talk too much because it is so disheartening to see that we, the children of Africa, we have allowed ourselves, we have given these colonial criminals who go back and organize themselves and call themselves as NATO. We have allowed them to use us. And at the same time, we still believe in what they are telling us. Can you imagine an African leader? Europeans went to Africa and warned an African leader to stop meddling on the affairs of Africa. How is that possible? Why? How are they able to do that to us? They are doing that to us because their ancestors went to Berlin. I keep saying it. And my intention here in One African Mission is to provoke the debate, or to provoke the African child to realize that he deserves better, or he or she deserves better. These people went to Berlin and divide Africa among themselves. And their intention was to keep Africa at the bottom of the human race so that they can continue to explore the continent of Africa. And that is the reason why you will see them going to Africa to warn African leaders or an African leader to stop meddling in the affairs of Africa. How is that possible? Can they do that to China? No, because the Chinese are well organized. Can they do that to the Russians? They cannot do that. Why do we, as children of Africa, the cradle of mankind, the original people of this planet Earth, we inhabited this planet Earth when there was no Arabian. We inhabited this planet Earth when there was no European, when there was no Chinese. And today we have allowed ourselves to be ridiculed by these people. Enough is enough. And Africans, I'm asking, when is enough going to be enough for the children of Africa? You saw the video, you watched the video by yourself. Whilst And it is not only this video. Even if you are somebody who follow One Africa Mission, the the president of Uganda, he was also talking about when those crises was going on in Libya. The African Union organized African leaders to go to Libya, and the Europeans, NATO, the colonial criminals warned them. They warned African leaders not to go and mediate in an African situation. They warned them because they think they own Africa. When are we going to stand up as men and women to bring an end to this humiliation by the Europeans? Because this is Europeans doing that to us as children of Africa. They enslave our people. They colonize us. And they still neo-colonialism. When are we going to stand up and say enough is enough? President Museveni talk about it, how they stop them from going to Libya and tell them, you dare not go there. You dare not go to Libya, because they know what they wanted to do. Their intention was to eliminate brother Gaddafi. And they did that. And I'm asking a question as an African. I'm asking you a question. Imagine the kind of leadership we have today in Africa. These young leaders who are coming up in Africa. I'm asking you a question. Please let me know on the comment section. If Africa still had Gaddafi, if Gaddafi was still alive today, even if he wasn't a leader, president of Libya, but if he was to be alive today, with the kind of ideology and ideas that he wanted for the continent of Africa, with the kind of leadership that we are having today in Senegal, a young Pan-Africanist has been elected as the president of Senegal, in Burkina Faso, in Mali, in Guinea, in Niger. Imagine this kind of people. If we still had Colonel Muammar Gaddafi as a leader in Africa, imagine, even if he wasn't to be a president now, if he was even old, and then he can be a statesman in Africa. Imagine if we still had him. If we still got him in Africa. Imagine where, like, just come to think about, and you can realize the damage that these Europeans have done to us. And then we can never forget the Europeans for the atrocities that they have committed in Africa. I thank you very much for coming around. Please, as I said, if you want to see a better Africa, if you want to see change in Africa, then please let us all together fight for a united Africa. Our dignity lies on our unity. With unity, we can gain back our dignity as children of Africa. But without unity, there is no way that we can gain back our dignity. We will continue to be described as the third-class citizens of this planet Earth. When, as a matter of fact, we are the originals. We are the first man and woman to live on this planet Earth. We give birth to everybody. And yet today, we have allowed our children to relegate us to the bottom of the human race. Enough is enough, children of Africa. Stand up and then fight for the united Africa. That is where we can gain back our dignity as children of Africa. I thank you very much for coming around. I am your missionary brother Dobia Anzanse. We are on a mission. We are a group of young Africans who are fighting for the unification of Africa. Please, if you appreciate what we are doing, subscribe and share our mission to family and friends. Let us all together fight for a united Africa, because unity is our strength as children of Africa. Thank you very much.